All right, you guys, we're back for PTD 105 Week 4 Instructor Corner Series. Welcome back. My name is Coach P, and I'm going to walk you through this next phase of the OPT model. Hope you guys are ready. Be sure that you're paying attention because I'm going to be giving a lot of good information that's going to help you answer the questions on the assignment. So let's move forward. So this week we're learning all about the power phase, and I've left some page numbers here for you to take a look at where you can find the specific acute training variables when you're working in this phase with your clients. Remember, this is phase 5 of the OPT model. I've also left the page numbers for common modalities of resistance training, plyometrics, and speed agility, because these are all topics that are intertwined when it comes to working with the overall last phase of the OPT model. So when it comes to power, this is really where, after we've developed our foundation in stages 1 and 2, and we've built a little bit of muscle in hypertrophy stage and strength, now it's really time to, if we want to enhance the power capabilities of our clients and really hammer it home, this especially if we're working with athletes or anyone who's looking to be a little bit more explosive with their actions, we can really focus on the main concepts and goals of the power phase, which is to increase the speed of muscle contraction and that rate of force production. Now, the maximum level of force production that we can really develop is going to be genetically determined, but we can improve our overall performance and get to our best for our personal selves when it comes to power training, which is going to allow us to develop as much force as possible with the strength that we've built over the course of the OPT model, and allow us to really perform at our best should we ever take the field or should perform in any type of athletic event. So the overall goals of this power phase is going to be increasing the velocity, speed of our movements, and increase the rate of force production by increasing the number of motor units we activate, the amount that they actually synchronize and work together, and the speed at which they're activated when we perform these exercises. So power is all about speed and how fast we can produce as much force as possible. So now we bring it to our acute training variable table again, and when we look about when we're training for flexibility, core, balance, plyometric, or resistance training, you can see that the reps and sets change drastically from what we see in previous models, particularly when it comes to the intensity. And the main reason for that is you don't want to do tons of repetitions when it comes to overall power, even if the intensity of the exercise is low, because as you can see, when you're training for power, you can do it for whether you're performing strength or up to 10% or even 30 to 45% of your one repetition maximum. It's going to allow you to develop as much force quickly. But when it comes to the higher levels, or the heavier movements, we want to be really, really careful. We don't want to burn ourselves out or do tons and tons of reps, because as we know, as we learned in the strength phase, we have to be really careful when we're lifting really, really heavy weights many, many times, because our form and technique will decay rapidly over time if we're not careful, and if we didn't warm up properly, or if we're at the tail end of our training. Really, really important to understand how to address the acute training variables when we're training for the final phase, in this case with power. So I want to touch on the differences in various modalities, because you're going to want to really, as a fitness professional, want to be able to accommodate your clients in the best ways that you possibly can. So it's very, very important to understand the differences between those multiple modalities, especially when you're trying to program for specific types of clients. And this is also to touch on the power phase. You are not stuck in the free weights modality or the dumbbells or the barbells. You can really apply power to any type of modality depending upon what the goals and capabilities of your clients are. But you have to think about the plus and minuses here on what might be best for your client due to their training age, their training status, their current time in their life, and their current capabilities. So we're going to touch on strength training machines first, which are very, very beneficial for any type of population because they offer a ease of use. You don't need as much of a stabilization base, and you can really focus on developing power in specific areas. So whether your client has a specific need or a need to develop power in a certain way, we can find out ways to be able to accommodate them with strength training machines. But just know that the one caveat to using resistance training machines is that we lose that need to stabilize. We lose that need to make sure that more muscle groups work together in order to perform the movement. So we're going to miss out on those multi-planar movements and the focusing on hitting the body from multi-directions in one exercise. So when we look at strength training machines, although you can use them at any intensity level or at any experience level, they are best for beginners and special need clients. When we look at free weights, we can usually use free weights in a variety of ways, with whether they're light weights, moderate weights, or heavy weights. They can really improve our athletic performance. They are usually the major modality utilized for hypertrophy and strength. They can challenge our core stabilization system, and they require more of a need to stabilize properly. They might require a spotter oftentimes, so we need to make sure that not only are we training our clients effectively in technique and safety, but to also make sure that they have a training partner or an individual who can step in and help them when they're performing higher levels of training with heavier weights. Oftentimes free weights, although can be used with beginners with the correct instruction, with a good coach or trainer. Sometimes they might be too difficult for beginning clients, and a more focus on lighter weights and prioritizing exercise technique really becomes the most important aspect when working with free weights. So it's very, very important that although free weights are one of the most common choices when it comes to strength training modalities, that we make sure that our client is ready for them during the appropriate phase of training. We also have cable machines and tubing, which can be used to either add volume or even be used for individuals who are not yet ready for the more difficult movements. This is especially able to be used in the strength or stability styles and phases of training. It can be really, really beneficial to help someone improve their overall posture and overall stabilization patterns. So you can use these at any experience level as well, particularly with your more experienced athletes who need a little bit of work or maintenance when it comes to stabilization and their overall endurance. Medicine balls are another great modality you can use with a variety of populations, particularly in the power phase of training. But medicine balls can be used throughout any of our stages, and they can be used in several planes of motion that'll make them really versatile and help us train in a variety of fashions that we cannot do with other types of equipment. Kettlebells are one of those, another style of training that, although it's a free weight, because of the fact that we have the handle at the top and the weight is near at the bottom, we can use them in a variety of ways that not only can improve explosive power, but can also help us develop our coordination and balance, as we can see in a variety of exercises that we can use for the shoulder. And we can use off-balance techniques to really target specific areas of our core stabilization. So kettlebells can really be used in a variety of trainings, whether the goal is stabilization, strength, or power. Bodyweight training is another great form of training that we can use because it doesn't require any equipment at all, just the own gravity that's applied to our own body weight. And when we perform bodyweight exercises, they can really help with proprioception and increasing stabilization and endurance and improving overall firing patterns, specifically when we use closed chained examples, such as a push-up or a squat. Suspension body training is another great way, another innovative approach that a lot of trainers are using, because it's also really, really beneficial for developing stabilization in core musculature and allows us to design and implement exercises that are utilized in multi-planes of motion and can really help us in our earlier stages of training, or can be used to add on volume of core training or stabilization training in our more experienced athletes later on in other advanced phases of training of the OPT model. And then we're going to briefly focus on plyometric training, which is especially normally used as a power type of exercise that can really enhance our overall explosive power, or once again can be utilized as a way to add volume of training to our more experienced athletes. And one of the major benefits of plyometric training is it can enhance our performance to exert maximal force output in as little as time as possible, allowing us to have a higher rate of force production. Now, with plyometric training, we must be very, very careful that the coach and fitness professional does a really, really good job of teaching the exercises correctly, because plyometric training performed incorrectly can really skyrocket that potential for injury if we're not careful. You must also be wary of where you put plyometric training during the training workout itself. You wouldn't want to do plyometric training immediately after a very, very heavy exercise unless you know that that athlete is really, really experienced and able to handle that sort of thing. So it's very, very important that you pay attention to the needs and capabilities of your overall client to prevent injury. So when it comes to plyometric training, we look at the overall concepts. These are quick, powerful, explosive movements when we work on the eccentric contraction. And when we go, what the main thing that we want to look at with plyometric is we go into the eccentric part of the contraction and spring or push off or develop as much force as possible in our concentric to create as much force as possible. And this is going to allow us to increase that rate of force production, which is what makes plyometric training so beneficial to developing overall power when it comes to the power phase of the OPT model. So make sure that we're using them correctly and understanding the importance of them, that they can really train our neuromuscular system and our ability to excite and be more reactive in real time of athletic events when it comes to performing exercises. And we can really do this in so many different types of functional movement patterns. You can discover ways to do upper body plyometrics to add to programming to help with rate of force development when it comes to any style of training. So when we're thinking about plyometric exercise selection, we do have to make the following considerations on whether or not they're safe. Are they done with really supportive shoes? You don't want to do plyometric training in overly used or very old, outdated footwear, making sure that we have a really, really solid base and foundation, making sure that we're also performing them on the proper surfaces is also going to have a profound impact on our ability to prescribe the correct types of exercises when doing plyometrics. And just like we've talked about with the acute training variables of any exercise, we need to make them progressive and progressively overload them over time to make them more beneficial towards our athletes and clients. So we want to make sure that when it comes to the stabilization phase, when we use plyometric exercise, that they involve little joint movement and they focus on very basic types of loading mechanics, such as doing a basic squat jump or lunge jump. Doing these types of plyometric exercises in this phase can really have a lot of carryover in how the rate of force production can increase and improve to aid them in other phases of training after that first or second phase of the OPT model. When we see plyometric exercises in the strength phase, then we can start to become a little bit more dynamic with the eccentric. We can start to do such as standing broad jumps onto boxes and focusing on the eccentric loading by falling into the eccentric phase of a squat. So for instance, me doing a standing broad jump onto a heighted box and then further jumping off the box and landing on the floor and landing in the bottom position and then coming back up to starting position. This is an example of how we can become more dynamic with our plyometric exercises in more advanced stages of training. And then further, when we get to the power exercises, the power phase of training, then we can get really, really dynamic and more functional with our plyometric patterns, being more explosive, such as the sidewinders that we see here with the young lady performing, going side to side. This is going to prepare her to be able to be better at producing force at much more increased speeds. What's going to be might be more applicable to what she'll see when she hits the ground running in whatever sport that she's performing, in whatever event that she might be playing in. So it gets the body used to being in particular positions at higher speeds that might not only make her stronger and more able to produce more force during athletic events, but will also prepare her body to take on that load and force when she's reacting at high speeds during the course of the game. And this might actually intuitively reduce the potential to incur injury. So once again, when we look at the overall program design, you can get this out of your NASM book. When you're programming plyometrics for whatever specific phase your client or athlete might be in, this can walk you through the typical number of sets and repetitions you could design for plyometric exercise during those particular phases. So wrapping it all up, these are the questions that you should be thinking about for your Instructor Corner series. First off, what is the main purpose and goal of the power phase of stage 5 of the OPT model? Once again, bringing it full circle, looking at how we alter and progress the acute training variables. What is the typical reps, sets, tempo, and frequency for this stage? Question 3, I want you to be able to compare and contrast at least 2 types of resistance training modalities that we went through, and be sure to go over the benefits and disadvantages of each. So comparing and contrasting free weights versus machines, or free weights versus stability forms such as using a medicine ball, or even comparing and contrasting free weights versus kettlebell training, and how can that improve or enhance our progress throughout training. And then the last one, what is the importance of overall plyometric training, and what types of benefits can you see from using plyometric training with your particular client. This has been your week 4 of PTD 105. Remember to come back and watch the recording as often as you need to be able to get these concepts down. And remember, don't forget to practice and work with your classmates or work with others to be able to really get these concepts down. Remember, if you have any questions, be sure to reach out to your instructor or myself. And remember, one step at a time. This is going to be very, very important to your path of becoming a fitness professional when you master program design. This has been Coach P. Remember, if you need anything, holler at us, get after it, work hard, and become the best fitness professional you can be. Coach P's out. We'll see you guys in the next one.